All right, everybody. Today we are going to be predicting what certain artifacts were used for in Mohenjo-Daro. So throughout today, you're going to be looking at a picture of something that was from Mohenjo-Daro, which was one of the ancient cities of India, and you're going to make a prediction about what you think it is, where you think it is, and then I will reveal what the actual artifact was or the picture was. So when you take your predictions, you're not going to lose points if your prediction is wrong, but your prediction should be realistic. So don't just write down something random, but make a good solid prediction, and then I will reveal what the actual artifact or picture was from. So let's start real quick with where exactly was Mohenjo-Daro. Mohenjo-Daro, remember, is a city in ancient India. So right here in the image, you see the Indus Valley Civilization, which is kind of highlighted in that orange paper or orange color. So then we see Harappa and we see Mohenjo-Daro, which were the two main cities of the Indus Valley Civilization. And the Indus River, which we know is the most important river, flowed right through Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. So that's kind of where a lot of our first civilization would have happened in India. Indus River flows back down here into the Arabian Sea. And a lot of the artifacts that were found in history with archaeology have been found in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro. So let's take a look here. This is kind of how the city would have been set up based on archaeology. So in the green you see that there is a citadel. A citadel is basically a raised up area that was kind of like a giant fort or fortress, they're going to call that. And it's going to be raised up above the town because they were kind of using that for protection. So they would look down on the lower town and the outer town. So like royalty and the military and things would kind of be in the citadel to protect the city. And then kind of like the lower castes and lower classes would be down in the lower town and the outer town. So that's kind of how the setup would be. And then this is kind of like a more 3D model of what Mohenjo-Daro would have looked like. So again, the upper city over here on the left with the citadel would kind of have walls around it. It would be more protected. And then down below that would be the lower town and the lower city. And if you notice, it is very, very organized like a modern city. Remember, we talked about how Mohenjo-Daro was very advanced and modern for its time. They had the perpendicular streets, they had the multi-story homes, they had the sewer system, which we'll kind of get into in a little bit here. And it was a lot more advanced than a lot of our cities that we talked about with Egypt and Mesopotamia. So now we're going to start looking at some images, some artifacts, some images, and you're going to make a prediction about what you think each one is before I actually reveal what it is. So image number one, what do you think these are? All right. So if you said anything along the lines of weights and measures in a balance system, you'd be correct. So if you look here in the middle, these discs would actually hold up all the different little blocks for weights. So if you've ever been to a grocery store and you're weighing, your vegetables and things like that, it's kind of like a balance and measuring system. So that would be some tools that they found that showed that they actually had a form of measurement, which is pretty advanced for its time. Image two here. What do you think this is? All right, I think this one you probably have a good idea on. This is the Great Bath, which we learned about when we watched the John Green video. So the Great Bath was deep down, about 9 feet deep, I believe, and they believe it was used for religious rituals and baptism. So you can kind of see some of the ruins around the outside, some of the buildings, some of the maybe multi-story homes surrounding it, and then the Great Bath would have been right here in the center. Again, they believed it was used for some type of Hindu ritual. So that is the Great Bath. That's the actual picture of it. All right, moving on to image three. What do you think these are? All right, some of you might have gotten this. If you remember back to the John Green video, he talked about something called trading seals. And trading seals were kind of like little stamps that they would press into certain things that they were trading to mark it in some way. Again, we don't really know how to read their writing, so we don't know exactly what all of these seals say, but you can kind of see little images on them that might reveal basically what product or resource they might have been trading. So something kind of cool about these though is if you look at this picture, they look pretty big, but really they were only about this big. They were about 1 inch by 1 inch. So if you measured out 1 inch by 1 inch, that's about how big most of these seals were. So think about taking that little tiny seal, engraving all of that on there. It takes some talent. So that was pretty impressive. All right, image four. What do you think this is? All right. So I always hear some interesting theories on this. Some people say like a bonfire, like a place to gather. Someone said a sacrifice in one of my classes in a previous year. This is actually their sewer system. So if you remember back in the John Green crash course, he talked about how they had an advanced sewer system which was able to take waste and get it underground, kind of like we have today. So over here, we see the well that would hold the water. And then over here, you kind of see this line that travels alongside. That's actually the sewer system that would be traveling that water out of the city. So very advanced. No other civilization had anything like a sewer system besides ancient India. So very impressive for the ancient Indian people to figure that out. All right, just a couple more. Image 5. What do you think this is? All right, this one's a little simpler. This one is just kind of like an alleyway through their multi-story homes. Remember, their homes were more like apartment style. They were multi-story. The upper classes would live higher at the top. The bottom would have some lower classes, and they would have multiple people living in these homes. It wasn't like the small mud brick homes of Mesopotamia and Egypt. So this was pretty cool. This is a multi-story home, kind of like an alleyway between different homes because they had very organized streets, as you remember. So this was pretty impressive as well. Image 6, what do you think these are? All right, I think you probably have a good idea on this one. These are board game pieces. So you kind of see down here, this is the little track. They might take some of these marbles and roll them on the track. So I would say that's kind of like their ancient form of Hot Wheels. You see dice over here. You see little game pieces. They believe this board was maybe was used for a different game. So kind of cool. They had different ways of entertaining themselves. So one thing to kind of point out, when they have archaeologists find these things, they they kind of can predict some things about the ancient Indians. So the fact that they even found board games is evidence that they actually had time to play board games. So we know that the Indus River was a good river, but that also meant that they had enough food and everything that they were able to actually have some time for entertainment as well. So that's pretty cool. And then finally, this is our last image here. What do you think this is? All right, they just really think this is a toy model of a chariot or a cart. They believe that this chariot or cart would have probably been used to bring goods to the market. So, in trade and other things that they might have been doing throughout Mohenjo-Daro and in town, they believe that this is some type of vehicle or traveling device that they would have had. They believe that was mostly used for traveling back and forth between market, but it could have been used for just general travel and other things like that. You can see it's clearly pulled by two animals, which they believe are oxen, and then it would have had some type of wheel system, which we know was invented in Mesopotamia. And they actually know that there was evidence of trading between Mesopotamia and India. So some of these concepts and technology could have been transferred throughout the two civilizations. All right, guys. Hopefully, you had fun predicting some of these images. Maybe you got a couple of them right. And as we keep moving through India here, make sure you're practicing for your test at the end of the week. And we will keep plugging our way through.